You know, when I was going through the tunnel, I had a little game that I played where I was like, how many minutes can I go before I hear the first beep? I very foolishly and naively thought when I first started going through the tunnel, when I first moved to Hataitai, that maybe one day I'll be able to walk through the whole tunnel and not hear a single beep. How naive I was. You know, it wasn't the first time I'd walked through the tunnel, it was probably the 100th time, right? And like I remember this on this one occasion, people were just going insane. Like, it was like, you know, have you ever had those moments where you're sort of like, you know, you're in some kind of situation, you think this is completely unreasonable. Like everybody around me is crazy, you know. And the whole time I was going through the tunnel, it was just a nightmare with people, you know, beeping.
What is it specifically about the attitude that makes you so angry? It seems like
it's just like just the sheer disregard for the comfort of people who are just going about their day. It's like if you were walking down Lambton Quay and someone just followed you and just every now and then they just squirted you with a water pistol. If you could go back and look at the posts that I make and scroll down to the bottom or just scroll through it, you'll see that like there are people who are just like, haha, don't give a fuck, I'm gonna think of you next time I go through the tunnel and I'm beeping.
Right.
Like there's almost like a malicious...
There was.
Yeah, what's with that? So, have you walked through the tunnel yourself?
We have, or at least I did a walkthrough just the other day, and it does feel like you're under attack.
Yeah, so let me just explain. It's really freaking loud, you know, it's an enclosed tunnel, and when you're like a pedestrian, like right there, outside the car, you hear it, you know, and it's bouncing off the thing, and like, it's just so inconsiderate to all the people who are going through the tunnel and they're in there for an extended period of time for the sake of like the most mild and inconsequential moment of enjoyment that someone gets from like beeping their horn in a tunnel. You know, contrast that against the literal potential damage to people's hearing. I don't even think about it. I don't need to think about it. I'll just beep my horn. Because it's cool, because it's what you do, it's tradition, you know. It's noisy, you know, there's all the like fumes from the vehicles. You have the bicyclists like bringing their bows at you and like suddenly appearing out of nowhere. You've got to constantly be looking over your shoulder to make sure they're not coming up on you. You literally feel like you're at the very, very bottom of the pecking order of the tunnel. It goes cars, you know, buses, trucks, you know, they're at the top, they get, like, the tunnel's there for them. Then there's the cyclists, then there's scooterists, and then at the very, very end, there's like, the like losers walking with their legs, you know. And it's like, well, that feels bad, you know, especially when you're just trying to deal with, I mean, it's walking through a freaking tunnel. This shouldn't be a problem, right? And the thing is, people, when you like sort of bring this up as like a point of debate, people are like, oh, but Phyllis Simmons, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no. I can guarantee you that 99.9% of the people who are beeping their horns in the tunnel don't have Phyllis Simmons on their mind when they're doing it.
It's interesting you bring up Phyllis Simmons.
Yeah.
You have said that you know quite a bit about her murder. And
I've done as much research as perhaps as possible on the internet. Went to the Karori Cemetery and through exhaustive investigation found where she's buried, and I like cleaned her grave, and I was like, oh, we should bring like a stone here and a plaque and like actually make it like not, it just seemed really shitty that this poor 17-year-old girl got pregnant, got buried alive, you know, and like, sure, it's nice in theory that we're beeping in the tunnel for her, but at the end of the day she's like buried in an unmarked grave. I'm pretty sure she was buried by the murderer underneath the netball courts in Hataitai. I found aerial photos from 1938, which was like 7 years after the tunnel was finished, and you can see from some other pictures where they had like a minecart track that they'd take the spoil away around where the netball courts are now, and then like 7 years later from the aerial photos you can see like where the spoil was. And then there's another picture showing the jury in the murder trial standing on top of the spoil heap, which said like this is where she was buried. You know, I think that the only redeeming factor of the beeping in the tunnel is that this poor murdered girl has her name remembered, and this crime, remembered, and her, that's the only redeeming thing. And I'm not actually completely opposed to the beeping in the tunnel. There is some nuance here. Like if you just beep, like when you go into the tunnel, like beep, that's fine. When you're like beep 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 beep, beep all the way through the tunnel, like there is,
Yeah, well, the confession that we need to make is we have all at different times.
I have beeped. I've beeped in the first time I went through the tunnel, I beeped.
You beeped in the tunnel?
Yeah, I beeped in the tunnel. The first time I went through the tunnel, in a car, in a van actually, I beeped because I knew that's what you do, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's the first and last time I did it, because I'm not a child.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
It's like, okay, I did the tradition, and you'll have a very hard time convincing me that every person going through the tunnel is beeping for the first time, right? These are like habitual beepers, I don't know. It's a nightmare. I mean, if I was to speak to the people who drive their cars through the tunnel, I would say, before you make up your mind on whether it's okay for you to do this, walk through the tunnel during a busy time of day without headphones and see what it's like.